Hello everyone, today, very cool build. It's a Claud Butler Electron. It's a bike that was well used by a previous customer, and he wanted a respray. So he got this beautiful blue color, and I also got the original decal, which I'm going to fit on it. Got the badge, also going to fit back on it, and then it's going to be kind of a restoration, but mainly like modification. So it's going to be 1x7 with a very big ring on the front, because that's what the guy wants. But yeah, let me show you like all the parts and let's go. So a closer look at the frame. It's 531 frame. Very simple. Got this nice lug on the front fork here. Attachment for the light. I got a pump peg here. And this is all the parts. Like I said, the decal, grips. It's very tiny pedals. So this is a ring that he wants. Got some new brake levers. Original Weinmann center pull. Got also Shimano Altus with a Sunrace shifter. I'm also gonna fit chain retainer on the front, and then the wheels. You also got a rack and the handlebar. So let's start by installing the decal. They're very nicely made decals I got from eBay from a shop called H. Lloyd Cycle. I put the link in the description. It's a very satisfying task. You just like when you peel them off, it's really nice. Very nice. So let's install the headset. Sadly, I don't have the fancy Park Tool headset tool, just using this cheap eBay one. But it really does the job. You know, I don't install headset every day. As usual, I'm using the original headset. So I always try to use original parts, just because, you know, it's easier, and also the parts were in very good condition. I'm using like blue Park Tool grease. It's a grease I use for pretty much everything on a bike. Really good grease. And for this headset, I'm using loose ball bearing. And more grease as usual. I always pack everything with grease. Just makes bikes like much smoother and easier to service. And now I'm installing the front cable hanger. I'm using center pull brakes, so you need to install this. Those old ones are a bit of a pain again, because they tend to move when you tighten the headset. And for tightening the headset, what I do is after I've tightened the headset, I use a plier wrench, and basically the plier wrench allows to remove a bit of the pressure on that top cup,
and just get the headset like nice and tight, but also running like nice and smooth. Moving on to the bottom bracket, because the frame has been painted, even though I protected the excess thread of the bottom bracket, I just decided to just clean the thread. So I'm very lucky to have that very expensive power tool, very handy tool to have, but absolutely not necessary for any home mechanic. And then what I'm doing here is just refacing the bottom bracket. So same, when you get a frame painted, sometimes they do put paints obviously everywhere, and refacing it just allow the bottom bracket to sit nice and flush on the frame. And again, that's not something that is absolutely necessary when you're doing a restoration. I'm just lucky to have the tool, so I'm just, you want to use your tool when you have them. And that's a very satisfying sound. I always love it. For the bottom bracket installation, I just put copper slip grease. Again, just prevent seizing and just make servicing easier in the future. And since I'm running that bike in 1x on the front, I just had to get another bottom bracket with a smaller axle length. And now I'm going to install the stem. Again, that's the original stem. I'm not a massive fan of that one. The locking system is actually not very good, and basically what happens if you tighten it too much, it tends to create a bulge in the fork tube, and yeah, so you have to be quite careful with that, and it tends to loosen quite easily, so yeah. I'm now installing the cable hanger for the rear brake. And seat post, we use copper slip grease as usual. So on my previous video I had some comments where people were worried about putting grease on the seat post. I do recommend putting grease on your seat post. It really helps preventing seizing. I've had to deal with seat posts and it's an absolute nightmare. And if you correctly tighten the seat post bolt, it should be fine. Your seat post should not fall into the tube. If it does, it's the wrong size or you've done something wrong, but the grease should not be the problem here. Let's install the front wheel. The wheel has some weird golden bolts. I wanted them in black or silver, but I couldn't find them when I was looking for some. They're actually kids wheels bolts, because that's an old wheel, and I think it's 8mm the axle, and the old bolts broke, so I had to replace them. Now let's install the rear derailleur. I wanted to use a new derailleur because the old one was really old and there was so much play in the pivot. I'll choose, you know, it's not the most beautiful one, but it works really well. I've read really good thing about it because it had such big pulley wheels. It actually like wrapped the chain really well. I wish they made it in silver though. And for the crankset, I'm reusing the original one where I just remove the small ring. That's an old choice from the person that used the bike, but he really likes to grind on gears. So he's going to use that really big ring, which I believe is a 52. Yeah, that's fun. For the pedals, I'm just using those Light Pro pedals. They're actually very nice, they're quite cheap, but very good quality. I was quite impressed. They're a bit small, but they look quite cool. And now I'm just removing the front wheel because I'm gonna install the front rack that the customer already had on it. Front rack is a Pelago. Absolutely love that brand. Those racks are amazing. They look good. They're very sturdy. They are, I think, well priced and really recommend for anyone that want a front rack. And now I'm just installing the front brake. I kept the original brakes, those are Weinmann Centerpool, and I'm a big fan of Centerpool brakes. Not the most fun to set up, but they do brake really well. And now I'm installing the brake levers. That's actually one of the biggest upgrades on that bike, were the brake levers. The old one were like the original one, but they were like Weinmann with no spring, a lot of play in them. Like, you know, those are like, I think they're Tektro, but they just have a spring. They just felt much nicer. And I'm also installing the rear shifter. I got a Sunrace 7-speed. they work really well. I really like those. They're not very expensive, they're well built. The only problem I had a bit with is the lever was catching the brake, so I had to adjust that a bit. Apart from that, works really well. And now I'm gonna install the chain. I got a new chain for the bike, the old one was pretty worn, and since I'm also putting a new freewheel on it, you know, it's good to just have a fresh chain. And just installing the quick link. And here I'm just installing the cable guide for the rear derailleur. I just put a piece of electrical tape underneath to, like, you know, protect the paint. Just installing the rear cable housing. And that frame has a neat braced on cable guide on the bottom bracket area, which is quite a nice feature. So here I'm just like testing if the gears are working. Just need to do a few adjustments. So the first adjustment is the limit screw to make sure the chain doesn't go over the big ring or like over the smaller ring and get jammed between the frame and the freewheel. And what I'm doing here is basically I'm holding the rear derailleur in place when I'm shifting up a few times, and it allows the housing and ferrules and cable to like basically get set. This is quite an important step, otherwise you're going to set your gears, and when you're going to start riding, after a few miles, like all your adjustments are going to be wrong. And here all I have to do is a tiny twist of the barrel adjuster, and then the gears are running nice and smooth. And I just fit a nice cable crimp at the end. And I'm gonna install the grips. I'm not installing the red grip that I showed at the beginning of the video, just because it looked a bit out of place, so I'm just putting those quite vintage white grips. And what I'm doing here is I'm just spraying some isopropanol alcohol. It just, you know, as you can see, helps like fit the grip nice and smooth, and then what happens after that, it just dries out. And I'm now going to install the brake cables. And now I'm just installing the straddle bridge for the front brake. I've lost the footage where I install the whole thing, but you can see it later on the back. Those are not really fun to set up because you have to hold the brake in place, and it can be quite annoying. And now I'm just installing the rear cable, the rear brake. And here I'm just using a reflector that have a built-in straddle bridge. It's quite a nice feature. I'm not a massive fan of reflector usually, but I think that one looks nice and round. So here's the technique I use to like set up the brakes. Basically I use a plier wrench, and then I just make sure it stays tight. So I use like a strap from a pedal cage, and then after that it's easy. You can do all your adjustments without having to worry about the brake not being tight and like moving. So it's quite a handy technique. And then the last touch is my sticker. I made those stickers, you know, heavily inspired by the Reynolds stickers. Yeah, it's always a nice touch to add to the bike so people can find out about who've done the bike. And here the final result. I didn't film like when I was fitting the front chain retainer, chain guide, just because it was not very interesting. But yeah, like the bike looks really nice, the paint job is beautiful, that deep blue works really well with all of those accents of silver. Yeah, very happy with how the bike turned out. And it rides super well. Yeah, that's another restoration. But thank you for following along, and see you at the next one.